In this video, we're looking at one use of the ablative case, or the ablative case that the Romans absolutely loved, and that is the ablative absolute. And with this one, we've finally filled our box of ablatives. Let's jump in and take a look. First of all, what does the word absolute mean? Absolute comes from the Latin word ab, which means away, and solvere, which means to release. So when you absolute something, you're releasing it. So it's not necessarily connected to the rest of the sentence, or at least it doesn't have to be. Let's take a look at this. This in English is actually a nominative absolute. We have absolutes in English as well. So let's take a look at this sentence. We have, all things considered, we are happy. We is the subject of the sentence. It's the subject pronoun. We what? We are. That's a linking verb. What are we? We are happy. Happy describes we. It's a predicate nominative. It's a noun that follows a linking verb, or it's an adjective that follows a linking verb and describes the subject. So it's actually a predicate adjective. My mistake. But notice that this sentence stands alone. We are happy. We don't need the rest of this, all things considered. All things considered simply adds light or description to the main sentence. We are happy. All things considered is separate from the main sentence and is not necessary to the main sentence. Therefore, it is it's separated, solvere, it's released, it's an absolute. Nominative absolute. In English, we have these. Okay, well, let's look at these in Latin. The Romans loved them. In Latin, what you'll have is two ablatives. They'll be right next to each other in a sentence, most likely, and they may or may not be disconnected from the rest of the sentence. They'll be absolute from the rest of the sentence. So you can remove them, and the rest of the sentence goes on just fine without them. Typically, an ablative absolute is going to have a noun, that'll be the main one, or a pronoun, and it'll be followed by a participle. That's the big one. It can also be followed by a past participle, which is sometimes called an adjective, and then on rare occasions it can be followed by a noun in the ablative case. But even in that case, the participle is assumed. So in all of our examples, we'll look at ablative absolutes with a noun and a participle. That's the most common one that you're going to see. Let's take a look. I sleep with the window open. First of all, let's forget all the stuff about the ablative absolute, and let's look at this sentence. The main sentence is, I sleep. I is the subject, it's performing the action, and the main verb is sleep, or actually the verb is sleep. Then you have this preposition, with the window open, is a prepositional phrase that is describing how you sleep. It's an adverbial phrase. Prepositional phrase being used as an adverb, so it's an adverbial phrase, and it's describing how you sleep. But to be honest, guys, we don't need it. The sentence still makes sense without it. With the window open just tells us a little bit about how this person sleeps, but it doesn't really give us any new information about what the person is actually doing. The person is sleeping. So the main sentence is dormio. Let me write that here. Dormio. I sleep. That's where we get the English word dormitory and dorm, etc. With the window open is an ablative absolute. It is separate from the rest of the sentence. So we're going to cross out with the, and we're just going to translate window open in Latin with the ablative. So, finestra, that's ablative. Dormio, finestra, and then open is aperio, but we're going to make it a past participle. It's a past participle because the window was opened at some point before this person went to sleep. Dormio, finestra, aperta. Notice that both of them are in the ablative case. Dormio, finestra, aperta. If we wanted to say this person sleeps with all the windows open, we would just make it plural, but it has to be ablative. So, dormio, finestris, apertis. I sleep with windows open. Here we have an ablative absolute. We have a noun, right there, and we have a participle. And it's actually a past participle. Can often be confused with an adjective. They're both in the ablative case. It's an ablative absolute, or ablative absolute. Okay, main sentence again. This done, he went home. Main sentence, he, subject of the sentence, it's the subject pronoun, nominative case. What did he do? He went, verb, where did he go? He went home. Adverb, tells where he went. Do we need the rest of the sentence? Not grammatically, no. This makes sense. He went home without the rest of the sentence. This section over here, which is separate from the rest of the sentence grammatically, is an ablative absolute in Latin. So to translate this into Latin, we would say hoc facto, this done. Notice that hoc is in the ablative and so is facto. These are both in the ablative case. And then we just add the rest of the sentence. He went home is domum habit. Hoc facto domum habit. With this done, he went home. You could also translate it as after this was done, or this having been done, or since this was done, he went home. Okay? As they sailed, he slept. This is a verse from the book of Acts, and it's talking about Christ in the boat. As the apostles were sailing across the rough seas, he slept. But the main sentence, he, subject of the sentence, he, subject pronoun, nominative case. What's he doing? He's sleeping, or he slept, verb. And that's it, he slept. Now, this part, as they sailed, simply tells us more about the main sentence. It describes a little bit of the sentence to us. It adds to the sentence. But he slept tells us what he's doing, and we don't need this part that is separate from the rest of the sentence. Nonetheless, it's there, so let's translate it. As they sailed, he slept. As they sailed is the ablative absolute, and it's plural. There's our noun. It's actually a pronoun in this case, not a noun, sorry. There's our pronoun. And there's actually a verb. Okay? As they sailed. Now we're going to translate this sailed part, which in English is sailed, we're going to translate it with a present participle in Latin. So this is an example where you could translate it a little differently. So, navigantibus, and that literally means they having sailed. Well, we have to add the they, and that is illis, both in the ablative case, ibus and illis. Navigantibus illis, as they sailed or as they were sailing, what was he doing? He slept, and that's easy. Dormivit. That's a past tense verb. I talk more about the tenses of verbs in my course Visual Latin. Just know that that's a past tense verb. Navigantibus illis dormivit. Navigantibus illis dormivit. Two ablatives right here, connected together, but honestly separated from the main sentence over here. Okay. Sailors do not want to sail during rough seas. This is a sentence from my favorite Latin book, Lingua Latina by Hans Warburg. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Sailors, subject of the sentence, nominative case, they do want to sail. That's the verb phrase, not as an adverb. Do is a helping verb, want is the main verb, and to sail is an infinitive that completes the meaning of the main verb. Now we have this phrase over here, this prepositional phrase over here, during rough seas, or adverbial phrase because it tells when. That is the ablative absolute. We could just say the sailors don't want to sail, and that makes perfect sense. We don't have to add during rough seas. Nonetheless, we have added rough seas. I'm just trying to emphasize to you guys over and over and over again that this part of the sentence is absolute. It is separated grammatically from the rest of the sentence. Sailors do not want to sail during rough seas. So in Latin that would be naute non volunt, using English word order here. Naute non volunt navigare. Okay, we've got the main sentence. The sailors do not want to sail. Naute non volunt navigare. What are we going to do with during rough seas? Well, actually, we don't need the preposition because we're going to put both of these in the ablative, and you'll know that it is an ablative absolute. And to do that, we just change seas, or during a rough sea. We just change that to ablative. So we're going to go singular here, during a rough sea. Let's do that, make it a little easier. So mare. Mare is during a rough sea. And rough is turbidus, but we're going to make it ablative. Ablative singular since I changed seas to sea. So, there we go. Naute non volunt navigare mare turbido. Naute non volunt navigare mare turbido. Sailors do not want to sail during rough seas. Okay, as the sun is rising, the ship sets sail. This is also from Lingua Latina by Hans Orberg, the best Latin book out there, but enough of that. Main sentence, ship, subject of the sentence, nominative case. What's the ship doing? The ship is setting, verb, and the ship is setting sail. Now, in English, this is an idiom, and it's also an idiom in Latin. To set sail, even though this is a transitive verb and this is direct object here, we're not going to translate it that way into Latin because this is an idiom really meaning that the ship sails, and that's how we're going to translate it. The ship sails. So let's just do this part first. The ship sails. Ship in Latin is navis. That's where we get navy. And what does the ship do? The ship sails. Navigat. And there actually is a word that we could use for like set sail, like moving out to sea. We could have said navis egreditur. Egreditur. I'm sure I spelled that correctly. Navis egreditur. That's correct. But that's a deponent verb, and that's a little bit complicated. So we'll just go with navis navigat. So the ship sails. Navis navigat. Navigat. When does the ship sail? The ship sails as the sun is rising. Now, this is happening right now, so we're going to use a present participle. So we have the sun is rising, but literally we're going to say with the sun rising, as the sun rises, the sun rising, while the sun rises, and we're going to do that with an ablative absolute. So we put sun in the ablative, sole, and then we take the word rise, oriens, and make it a present participle. Sole oriente. Sole oriente. Sole oriente navis navigat. Sole oriente navis egreditur. With the sun rising, the ship sets sail. Here we have a noun, sole, and we have a present participle, oriente. That's usually the setup that you'll see with ablative absolutes. After saying these things, Peter went away. So here's one from the New Testament. Main sentence, Peter, subject of the sentence. What's he doing? He's leaving. He went away. Went is a verb. Away is an adverb. It tells us where he went. And we're just going to translate this as, oops, my pen's acting up on me, as Peter abit. So he went away, he left, right? Peter left. When did these things happen? After he said something, after saying these things, or these things having been said is the literal translation of what we're about to write. So these things having been said. His dictis. Notice both are in the ablative case, and his here stands for things. It's really these things. His is a substantive that is replacing things. So after having said these, he went away. So this stands in the noun position because it's a substantive adjective, and edictis is the participle. So it's in the participle position, both of them in the ablative case. His dictis Peter abit. Having said these things, Peter went away. There you go, guys. That is the ablative absolute. That has caused much confusion for many Latin students throughout the years. If you need more help with it, or if you need another video to explain more, just email me or contact me here at DwaneThomas.com. If you want to find out more about Latin, Greek, and its effect on our language, well then I'll see you over there. Take care, my friends.